All right, we're live. Welcome back to Lunch with EFI. We've got three of our four kind of standard attendees and participants. Welcome, Jay and Jason, to today's episode.
Great to see you. I think Matt Ladner right now is en route over Canada, is last I heard. So he'll be home soon. I just got back from the frozen tundra of Minnesota. But Jay, where were you?
I was in the frozen tundra of Antarctica. So greetings from all my penguin and seal friends.
Okay. Your newfound friends from the South.
Yes.
That's great. Well, yeah, welcome. We've got a fun lineup today of appetizer, main dish, and dessert. And so let's turn it over to Jason for our appetizer.
Yeah, well, the school choice momentum continues. I mean, we thought maybe it's going to run out at some point. We're now at 20 states that have universal school choice, most of them ESAs, a few of them tax credit scholarships or vouchers. But we are seeing a lot of momentum, and you'd think, maybe at some point it's going to start to dwindle. And usually in an election year, we don't do as well. If you actually look back over the past 2 decades, you see that in the year after an election year, and when I say election year, I'm not talking about the presidential elections, I'm talking about state legislatures. So you will see spikes in those years after, and then it kind of declines in an election year. Often they have a shorter session. They don't want to touch controversial issues or anything like that. But this year, I think we're going to see some expansions. I think.
So why do you think it's different this time?
Because it's a very popular issue and it's a proven popular issue. And one of the big
this has gone from it's too controversial to do leading up to the election to we got to do it leading up to the election because it'll help us win.
Because it's a winner. Yeah,
that's right.
It's a winner. Okay,
and it's a winner. And the other thing is, for a long time, the teachers unions and the public ed establishment essentially scared conservatives into not doing it. They said, okay, if you do this is going to ruin the public school system, and we're going to blame you, and we're going to throw you out of office. And then a few states did it, and there were no repercussions. Now you've got 20 states that have at least universal eligibility. Only 8 we would call truly universal, where every eligible person can, every eligible child actually gets access. But 20 where everybody is at least eligible. And not a single one of those states had their state legislature switch hands since they enacted it. So the water is warm. Come on in. We're going to see some expansions of the existing programs, I think, in Iowa and Louisiana and a few other places. But most importantly, I think we are going to, and Matt, I don't know. Oh, there it is. Mississippi, I think, is going to be the big one this year. This is the one I think that is the most likely to go universal.
So what do they currently have?
Nothing, pretty much. I mean, they've got these little programs for students with special needs, but they are extraordinarily limited. I mean, we're talking in the hundreds, maybe very low thousands of students that are participating. But very few students are able to participate. And they're going to do a big omnibus bill. I think it's like a 700-page bill that's doing a lot of different things in education reform. But one of the packages that they are including in this is they're calling them Magnolia student accounts. So they are similar to ESA accounts that you see in other states. And the other thing is, as I mentioned, I just got back from Minnesota. Now, I don't think that Minnesota is going to do anything this year because they've got divided government. The Republicans control very narrowly one chamber. The Democrats very narrowly control the other chamber. You've got Tim Walz as the governor for now. Who knows how much longer Tim Walz is going to be there. He's not running for re-election anymore for some strange reason. But I figured while I was there in Minnesota, I had to make a pilgrimage to the Quality Learning Center. And you can see they actually fixed the sign. It says Quality Learning Center now, although if you look closely, the name of the street that is on is still spelled incorrectly.
Closely on there, not on that. It's on a different file.
No, it's right there. If you see on the door itself.
Oh, on the door.
On the door itself.
Okay.
They spell Nicolette wrong, and you can see that it's spelled correctly here with 2 L's. They only spell it with 1 L. But unfortunately, they are sadly closed. So for all the imaginary students that had been attending school there, sadly it is closed. And you can see that it closed down.
Where will those imaginary students go?
Where will they go? I don't know.
Center.
They have a lot of other options there. But look, it closed down. If you look closely here, as of January 6th, 2026, closed down on January 6th. So I guess you could say they stopped the steal on January 6th. Which is impressive. Okay.
They're going to have to leer somewhere else.
Yes. But the serious point is, for some reason, the Republicans think that they might have a trifecta in Minnesota next year. And so they are very serious about having a universal school choice.
And look, Minnesota was a pioneer in school choice.
The first ones are charter schools.
Yep.
I was going to say, charter school, the birthplace of charter schools, 1993, 2?
No, 1990, I think.
Yeah.
Was it in 90?
Yeah.
And then, back really quickly, back to Mississippi, quick comment on that about charter schools. I hope, sincerely, that they do better in Mississippi with expansive school choice with these savings accounts than they did with charter schools. They have, I think, a grand total of 8. So, yeah, hopefully Minnesota and Mississippi jump all in on this and really drive it home. That'd be great.
And it's important that Minnesota is a purple state. We only have a few purple states that have school choice. I mean, Arizona was deep red when it enacted it. It's now somewhat of a purple state for other reasons, but even with a Democratic governor, they've been unable to undo the program. New Hampshire is a purple state. They have universal school choice, but again, enacted by Republicans, and the Republicans have been in control ever since. Minnesota, I think, would be the first real purple state. I mean, I guess you could maybe count Pennsylvania, but Minnesota would be the real first purple state.
Well, Pennsylvania doesn't have a universal program yet.
That's right. Pennsylvania does not have universal. It has a fairly robust tax credit scholarship going back to, I think they enacted it in 2001, maybe 2002. But, in the last few years, it's been all red states. And
look, our political theory is that when these programs are created and enroll a substantial number of students, that you create a critical mass of beneficiaries who are then in a position to advocate for continuing and potentially expanding the programs. And so the reason why these programs don't get undone when party changes hands in Arizona is because there are too many people who benefit from it, who are organized and in a position to punish anyone who would try to take it away from them.
Yeah. So I expect that, we are running out of red states, but I do expect that we are going to start to see purple states adopt it. I mean, we've even seen Governor Jared Polis in Colorado say that he wants to adopt the federal school choice program. So I think we're going to start seeing some purple and maybe even some blue state governors that embrace school choice as the political calculus makes it. I mean, look, this is what Milton Friedman used to say. I remember there's a great video, you can find it on YouTube, where somebody tells Milton Friedman, "Oh, we got to throw the bums out of Congress," and he said, "No, you don't. No, you can't count on getting the right people elected. You have to make it politically profitable for the wrong people to do the right thing." And that is what the school choice movement has done. They have made it politically profitable to embrace school choice, and the converse, they've made it politically dangerous to oppose school choice, especially once a school choice policy has been enacted, which is why the left has had such a hard time trying to undo these reforms.
So you're not tired of winning?
Not tired of winning.
Can I just say, before we move on to the main dish, I think that this same logic applies to the accountability hawks that live in our camp as well. They're everywhere. They are everywhere. And they believe still that back to, this is a month or two ago that we had this same conversation. We were talking about, well, we just need to try harder. If we just push a little hard, right, Jay? This was you saying this like 3 or 4 times in another episode. If we just try harder, then obviously, you know, we can push student achievement to new and greater heights. And here's the thing. These same people that say if we just try harder aren't saying just try harder. What they're saying is we need to set the bar higher and punish everyone below the bar. And what that means in practice is more charter schools get shut down for low performance, not district schools, charter schools.
Not for true low performance, but for manufactured low performance.
That's right. So I just want to say, I think this same logic applies
in reverse, which is there are no beneficiaries to top-down accountability ed reform, right? The only constituency to it is the foundation program officer who writes the check to the advocacy organization. But voters aren't lining up at the State House saying, test my kids more, close down my school. That is not a campaign slogan that appeals to voters.
No, they don't say that. There's no one, to your point, no one is lining up saying, my school, everything about it is fabulous and wonderful. My kids are safe. I sent them there on purpose, but shut them down because they didn't perform well on standardized tests.
I'm too stupid to know whether it's good or not.
Right.
I think it's right. You know, like.
So, and these are our friends. You know, these are our friends.
Yeah.
That by and large, on every other item of policy that we want to advocate.
And you know what? It was a reasonable theory. It wasn't crazy to think that maybe we could get meaningful reform in that way. It was plausible that maybe you could gain a constituency for standards and quality in schools, independent of people being beneficiaries of choice. But in practice, it didn't work out. So, one of the important things in the policy world is trying different things and learning from success and failure. And it's a real problem that we have a funding ecosphere for policy advocacy that does not reward learning, does not facilitate learning. And so we keep flogging failed ideas for decades after they have obviously failed, because there's no reward or punishment within the policy advocacy ecosphere for learning and ditching those things. So as long as you keep getting paid for doing it, you're going to keep seeing people do it. I like winning, and so that's why I join Jason in not being tired of our strategy of winning.
Right, and look, we have failed to regulate the public schools into success. We have failed to regulate them into quality. We should have no illusions that applying those same failed strategies on the private sector are going to lead to the same results. And when you end up shutting down a charter school, let's say that parents have chosen, what you're really doing is you're often shutting down their least bad option. Let's say it is a charter school that is low performing on standardized tests. Yeah. Parents still chose that over the local public school, perhaps because the public school is dangerous and the charter school, even though it's not great, it's safe.
And also low performing might be that the school is actually serving kids with a lot of challenges.
That's correct.
So the school actually could be high performing, but we're not observing that correctly because they happen to take on kids who are really difficult.
100%.
And do we want an education reform movement that decides to punish anyone who's foolish enough to attempt to serve challenging kids? Exactly. Are we going to drive challenging kids out of our movement?
Look, this is the article that Max Eden wrote a number of years ago about Rain Shadow, right? The Rain Shadow is the school in Nevada that was focused on students who were like in and out of juvie, that were basically on a path to prison. Okay. And these kids were far behind on their credits. And if you looked at them on the standardized tests and all that, they looked terrible. They were one of the worst performing schools in the state, and they looked terrible. So the state goes to go and try and shut them down. And the parents revolted, like, what are you talking about? Like, my son was on path to prison or death. Okay. Now he's going to be a plumber. Okay. Now he's going to have a decent life. Like they taught him skills. They taught him to, show up and do a good job. And yeah, okay, he's not going to be a doctor. He was never going to be a doctor, but he's not going to be dead.
I demonstrated this in a study we did for EFI a couple years ago, on where we had a survey of parents for the reasons why they selected virtual charter schools.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, the regulation people hate virtual charter schools. They hate them. And they point to the, on average, lower scores that those schools tend to have. But what they miss is that virtual charter schools are unusual and they attract unusual people. They're designed for unusual circumstances. So in a lot of cases, it's a kid who's bullied in a traditional school, a kid who falls in with the wrong crowd in a traditional school, a kid who's on the verge of dropping out, and the parents are desperate and they're looking for something that will just keep the kid engaged in the educational process. And a virtual school is often a good solution for doing that. But those kids are in trouble. They have a lot of problems, and they're not necessarily going to have the best test scores, but that may not be the immediate goal. The immediate goal may be to keep them engaged in the educational process, keep them in school, prevent them from dropping out, and keeping them out of bad crowds where they're going to be in danger, either because of drugs or abuse or some other kind of problem.
That's right.
And so that's the beauty of choice, is empowering families to find solutions that fit the unique circumstances of their kids.
All right. Well, speaking of dropping out, I think that's a nice segue to our main dish, which involves enrollment declines. Matt, there's a new report out about K-12 enrollment declines around the country and changes in staffing. Are staffing, do we see staffing in public schools declining as enrollment declines?
We don't, weirdly. Does that surprise anybody? So our fabulous and wonderful and funny friend, Ben Scafferty, highly skilled, smart guy. Can you tell I like Ben? He's great. He's been, he has been, again, vindicated, and his thoughts on this have been verified again. The staffing surge. We are back to, again, the staffing surge, even amongst enrollment declines. So the Edunomics lab over at Georgetown provided some analysis a couple of years ago, but they recently updated their data to include...
That's Marguerite Rosa's shop, right?
Yes, that's right. They went back and added another year of data to this report that they produced a couple of years ago. And so now we have data through 2024, school year 2024.
And is that post COVID money now? We're
not through the COVID money.
They're still riding high with COVID money in 23, 24.
Yeah, in fact, if school districts chose to, if they sought a waiver to extend out the use of those funds, that could go all the way through mid 26. So it's actually March 26. So in 2 months from now, they will have, if they applied for all of these waivers that allowed them to spend that money to the furthest date possible, these ESSER funds, they could potentially be spending all the way through March. So we won't see that data for some time. This likely 24, virtually everyone that got ESSER money was still spending it at this point. So I think, and in fact, I don't know if I have it here. I haven't added it here. I'll add it in a minute. But what you're seeing is what we've seen for a long time now. That you can see back in 14-15, this was just their starting point. So the reason that there isn't a disconnect at 14-15 is because that's where they started. So that was their base. year, and then from there they said, okay, how did enrollment change from that school year versus the staffing levels? So virtually every state looks like some version of this, and they did a great job of going state by state, where you can see what does Alabama look like versus Wyoming, and they're all some variation of this. In no case, in 0 cases of all 50 states, was there an instance where they were consistent with one another, meaning that was the change in line with, or that didn't happen in any instance. In every single case, staffing outpaced enrollment. And this is a nationwide snapshot where you can see enrollment is declining. This is something that our friend Matt Ladner has talked about a lot over the past.
So we have a birth dearth going on, right? There's fewer babies being born, and that's making its way into the school system. So enrollments are declining. We have a slowing of immigration, so that it's not being replaced by importing kids from abroad. So that's also contributing to the decline. And school choice. And yet we employ more and more people. So obviously the results are getting so much better because we have all these extra people to help our kids, right? Is that happening?
A fun argument, yeah. But one of my favorite arguments, we need smaller class sizes. Of course, this is where we're going to get our test score improvements, student performance.
I've been making this argument for 3 decades, which is that when you tell people small, what do you think of small class size? And they say, yeah, I like it. What they're thinking is they're going to get a personal chef. Right. They're going to get Emerald, who's going to say bam, for their kid. But really what they're going to get as you increase the number of employees is you have to dip deeper into the labor pool, and you're going to get the fry guy. So you'll have a one-on-one teacher for your kid, but that teacher will be illiterate.
Well, and important, exactly. And importantly, look at the very top there, what we're talking about is employees. We're not talking about teachers.
Well, we've had an increase in both teaching and non-teaching staff. Yeah.
So yes. And this
non-teaching staff has increased more. That's true.
That's right. And this was kind of the big aha with Ben Scaffidy's work, and back to the staffing surge, was the growth in administrative positions and support staff versus teachers. Everyone is thinking, well, if we get more money to education, K-12 education, of course, what that means is that we're going to get better and brighter teachers and more of them. Well, that just isn't the case.
Now, of course, the push is high intensity tutoring, right? So we've thrown a lot of money at the school system. We've hired a lot of new people. The performance has gone down. And now what we need is to hire even more people after school to do the things that they were supposed to have done in school but didn't do, right? So we need even more money and even more staff, because trying more money and more staff didn't work. So we have to quadruple down.
I don't know, Jason. I mean, high intensity tutoring, that's so 2025. I mean, I think actually they have moved on, because there have been a number of rigorous evaluations of the effect of high intensity tutoring interventions, and the effect is goose egg. It's not helping. Making no difference.
Well, they just haven't tried hard enough. I mean, maybe instead of doing it in the afternoon, we got to do it in the morning before school.
How do you know? Right. Yeah. Right. Or maybe you need higher quality tutors who are high intensity. You need to,
there you go.
Sort of like this is the preschool argument.
Well, that sounds expensive. We'll have to double the money again.
More money is.
We'll try that.
Yeah.
Well, I think there is a real world accountability here. Which is even school systems are going to run out of money. They're going to run out of the COVID money. As the birth dearth makes its way through the system, voters are going to be less interested in being taxed for schools that they don't have any kids in. right?
Yeah.
And this has happened before. This is not a new. We've lived through this in a small way before, which was we had the baby bust in the late 70s, early 80s, which was
we're having
the
again.
end of the baby boom. There was a decline in school enrollment, and we had an increase in the number of people who had no children in schools, and it led to property tax revolts, famously in California, but also across the country. It led to school closures. It led to layoffs. It ironically led to the nationalization of the teachers' unions, which were not a national political force until that time, because they became a national political force because teachers were joining the unions to protect the jobs that were in danger because of the baby bust closures. So we've lived through this before. We're going to live through it again in a bigger way, but there is going to be a cut in expenditures for schools per pupil. There has to be, and there will be. And frankly, school choice is something that could help state legislatures manage this, because if they could set up school funding systems that are sector neutral and just give a certain amount of money to every kid, no matter what sector they went to, and the choice amount or the charter amount is a lot lower than right now for the traditional public, then as the enrollment goes down, by formula, the expenditure goes down, and the state legislatures then get some money freed up to cover the healthcare bills that are going to, crush them. So I think choice is a good solution here.
Yes, choice is a good solution, but I would say, as far as the district schools where they've tried more money and they've tried more staff, at least they've tried, and shouldn't we give them credit for at least trying? And I think that's a good segue for our last part of the meal, the dessert. Jay, shouldn't people get credit for trying?
Yeah, well, this is a very postmodern thing, is that it doesn't matter what you do. What matters is what you say. So we've seen a large number of institutions caught engaging in very bad anti-Semitism. Okay, let's just take the example of Harvard, right? Harvard just serially and severely engaged in anti-Semitism over the last few years. And they've really been caught at it. And it's been, we don't have to go over documenting it right now. If you don't believe me, talk to me later. And I'd be happy to show you all the evidence. But they did this. But then when you say, look, Harvard, you're shockingly anti-Semitic, they say, but we issued a statement saying that we condemn anti-Semitism. We have a task force that is dedicated to fighting anti-Semitism. Don't we get any credit for saying that we're against anti-Semitism? Don't we get any credit for the fact that we have a task force? And I think the answer is very little credit. What matters is really what you do, not what you say. And we have to end this kind of postmodern reality where whatever you say is what is true, as opposed to what you do is what is true. It's just kind of an irritating thing that I see a lot. So, an analogy to this would be if there were a minister who preached against adultery, and then he was caught, with engaged in public affection with a congregant. And people called him out on it, and he refuses to give up his mistress, but he says, well, look, don't I get any credit for all of the preaching I've done against adultery? No, we would say you're a hypocrite is what we'd say. We wouldn't say you get credit. And I think that, I was talking with actually Greg Forster about this yesterday, and he said, the reason why we probably think about this differently in the context of a church than we would in the context of Harvard, is that in a church, they haven't fully embraced postmodernity yet. Like, we still think that, like, what you do matters, not just things that you say. But educational institutions have, gone so far into postmodernity that they expect that their rhetoric should be recognized as what's real.
So will people, here's the question. the congregants of that church with that pastor should see what's going on there and leave, right? They should leer from their right and move on. Will the potential student families who are sending their kids off to Harvard leer from what's going on there?
So I'm a big believer in reality. I have not given up on reality. And I think that this is a theme for our entire lunch in a way, is that there is a real world consequence to actions. And you could say whatever you want, you could spin however you want, and it does not prevent that real world consequence from occurring. So institutions that flagrantly engage in and fail to repudiate their own anti-Semitism will suffer badly. Okay. They're going to lose donors. They're going to lose quality applicants. They're going to lose status and influence. And the same is true for a church. The same is true, in policy advocacy. In the end, the policies that pass are the ones that are going to change reality. You could talk all day long about the policies that never happen, and it's just a conversation, and it never will be anything real. I mean, the Children's Defense Fund, which is still kind of stuck in 1970s anti-poverty programs, it still exists. It still has donors. They still have meetings. They still write white papers and talking about how right they are, how righteous they are. You can live in this imaginary world forever as long as someone pays for it. But everyone else is going to move on in the real world in which we actually live.
Which I think is why you see college enrollments declining across the board now.
Or shifting to the new Ivies, Wash U and Vanderbilt, or to flagship state universities in the South, UT Austin, Florida. We're seeing people vote with their feet, which is exactly what we see with school choice, right? No matter what you do, you can't talk your way into reality. People will move. They will switch where they consume their products, and that reality is the reality that will ultimately prevail.
Yep.
All right. Well, will we ever leer? I don't know. I think we've leered a lot today. I certainly have.
I love leering.
Yeah.
Jason, I love the fact that you voted with your feet and made the pilgrimage to the Quality Leering Center. I actually think it's sad that they changed the sign. I want that too.
Before closing, they spent money as they were closing.
Well, they had a lot of money. They had real dollars, but fake students. They had a lot of money.
You should have gone and see if is it in the dumpster somewhere? You should have gone around the back and dug it out of the garbage. Anyway, thanks everyone for joining us. That was a fun one. We'll see you again next week.
Take it.